Don in London, hello. My video for March 10th, all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. And simply living one day at a time in recovery, and happy to an extent this morning. A good night's sleep, most things manageable, and all is well in my world, or just about, as best it can be. For today, I live in a one-day programme, and courtesy of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I keep sober one day at a time, and of course family, friends and community as well, and medical professionals, and the people I meet in the street, on the bus, in the library, wherever I happen to go, and even the checkout operator in the market. Everything works these days. If I remember, I'm the same size as anybody else, no bigger, no smaller. So for me, Alcoholics Anonymous, a big part of my story. I never speak for AA, cannot, do not want to, but I can speak about how it helped me in my recovery, and really it is the backbone of what has made life possible today. So what is AA? It's a place where we see what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG, as it's called. What you see is what you get. It's a program of attraction and not promotion. So this is not a promotion video about AA. It's about how it helps me in my life, and I share some of the information about what is AA and some readings as well, and what they mean to me. One person, one voice, not the voice of AA. I keep on emphasising that, it's so important. What you see is what you get. So meetings of AA is where it all happens, where life can change. And we go out into the world and we change our attitudes and behaviour. And something wonderful happens. We just don't need to pick up a drink, whether it's working well or working awfully just that day. Everything can change, that's it. So what is AA? I'll read the AA preamble, shared at every meeting. Again, what you see is what you get. Some people happy, some people sad, some people angry, some people one day sober or 30 years sober. You never know, it's just what you see on the day. So AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Ooh, that's quite a lot of stuff. In essence, we can just turn up at any meeting of AA, sit there, listen, feel better for it, or even feel worse for it, but it's allowed us to feel something today. So what is AA? It's an emotional and spiritual program of recovery for one day. So if we know what our feelings are, and they match the experience we're having, that is, our feelings are equal to the experience we're having today, rather than outside that range of, and not in the extreme, unless it's an extreme situation, then we probably are having a day as it's meant to be. And what is spiritual? Well, it's the ability to cope with what's going on. All things are spiritual, all life is spiritual, but it's the quality of our spiritual experience, for me, which counts most. So what is a quality spiritual experience? Seeing reality, feeling reality as it is, and knowing that we have choices in what is going on. Doesn't mean we're in control of everything, it just means we have choices based on what is reality. And yesterday I started talking about chapter 2 in what is known as the Big Book, and this is my enormous big book, for those who can't see too well, or for people who just like big books, like me. And chapter 2 is called There is a Solution, and you know, the whole idea is to move from the problem of alcoholism into the solution and recovery from alcoholism. As an addict, it doesn't go away, but what happens is we live more in the solution than we do in the problem. So old behaviours can come back when we're pushed too far and we don't know what to do. But most of the time we are able to make sense of the world and make sense of reality, more so than with a drink inside us. So chapter 2, there is a solution. I'll try and go through this and what it means to me. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill Wilson, the co-founder. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social and religious backgrounds. So everybody, it's a diverse base of people. We are people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. And an understanding of which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to the captain's table. Unlike feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us, but that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe it as an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt. But not so with the alcoholic illness, for with it there goes annihilation of all the things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. You name it, people are affected by it, and because it's seen as a weakness rather than an illness, that a person should have the willpower to stop self-harming, there is a great stigma attached to being an alcoholic, or at least there used to be, and still is by many people, because don't forget, society says, be the last man standing, or the last woman standing, hold your drink, be able to do all these things. It's part of your rite of passage into adulthood, or it was for me. And I could be the last man standing in many circles, but not in the alcoholic circle. We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are, or who may be affected. There are many, and in the UK it's suggested that 1 in 13 households has a person or people with drink dependence. Highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives, parents and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with the facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lecturers to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. And one of the most important parts in there for me is there is no holier than thou in fellowship. Everybody has a story which is a unique and authentic story to themselves, with this one similarity, a desire to be sober for one day. And if we're living in one day, we're no bigger, no smaller than anybody else. That's what got me into it in the first place, that nobody could tell me what to do, but there were suggestions which were very strong and emphatic around how to be sober one day at a time, and that we're all the same size in fellowship. That's so important too. So it's not do-gooders coming round to try and do you good. It's people trying to do good by sharing their example, but not talking down to anybody. And he goes on to say, none of us makes the sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. We feel that elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations and affairs. So in other words, it's really about learning to be sober so the rest of life can work, and staying sober a day at a time being the primary important fact so that life can work. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. I give a fair amount of time over, and I don't know if I should give it, I just enjoy sharing experience, strength and hope. So I suppose it is giving, but it doesn't feel like giving, it just feels like sharing. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result, but the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given to us? We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful programme for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social and religious. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which could contain no basis for contention or argument. So it will be argumentative and contentious and controversial. We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal, that is, just share a message. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints, and a respect for their opinions and our attitudes, which make us more useful to others. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. So it's not about being right and having the only way, it's about sharing what has worked for us. And for every story there is another story of unique, authentic take on recovery. So one of those will actually be our story somewhere along the line, or so similar that we can actually take wisdom from it. You may have already asked yourself, why is it that all of us become so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why, in the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. If you're an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. We shall tell you what we have done, but before going into a detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we have seen them. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? That is in relation to drink. Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer and wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I think he should stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again it would kill him, but there he is, all lit up again. So why is it we cannot stop? Now these are commonplace observations on drinking which we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding, and quite honestly, ignorance and misunderstanding, when somebody is ignorant of something in the broadest sense, it means they just don't know. And if there are misunderstandings, it's because other people don't have the malady or the addiction. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have a habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome, and may even need medical attention. So even the hardest of drinkers may not be an alcoholic. It depends on how you look at it. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. So, in other words, like me, there was no off switch until there was none left. Here is the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well balanced concerning everything except liquor, but in that respect he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities, skills and aptitudes, and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. He is the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock round, yet early next morning he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. And for those of us who were probably cross-addicted, we used to use alcohol for oblivion. Wake up in the morning and find another addiction ready and waiting for us called work, or the gym, or something, some madness to extreme. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over the house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedative and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can get to work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all the time, drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums. Those are the lucky ones, because a lot of people just die in the process of all this, or have horrible accidents. Or they don't have any accidents at all and carry on into the worst type of nightmare, which is 24/7 drinking. This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behaviour patterns vary. So in other words, people are unique and authentic in their drinking, but when we're in recovery we have one similarity: to be sober. Why does he behave this way? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there will never be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer this riddle, other than we keep on drinking once we've reached a certain stage and cannot stop. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol whatever into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centres in his mind, rather than in his body, which is why it's an emotional and spiritual program. But physically we do recover as well, as best we can, if we have chance. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout can create. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. And I'm sort of laughing inside when I see that, because it's true. Once in a while he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are baffled a lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. The fact is, most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink, and it is the power of choice which is restored when we stop drinking. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defence against the first drink. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is complete failure of the kind of defence that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. So if you're allergic to peanuts, you don't eat peanuts, but if you're allergic to alcohol and you can't stop, you persist. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's now," or "so here's how." Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sake, how did I ever get started again?" only to have that thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll stop with the sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?" And that is what happens. When this sort of thing is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history, but for the grace of God there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations so many want to stop but cannot. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the levelling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the process requires for its successful consummation, which is to be sober one day at a time. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we have been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problems had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple toolkit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We had found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence which we had not even dreamed. So we have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. So a life beyond your wildest dreams, maybe. Indeed, my wildest dreams were very unreal, but I've been rocketed into reality, which is beyond my wildest dreams. It's whatever it is for each person, is what I'm saying. Continuing, the great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. And for me, spiritual is the ability to cope with now, and it's a bit of a shocker to the system that I can deal with reality and cope with reality on a day-by-day basis, with support and help in fellowship. Yes, and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe, or simply the universe, nature and providence, as we choose to believe, and where our faith resides. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator, or nature, providence and the universe, has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves, and that starts with fellowship for me. If you are seriously alcoholic, as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, and we had passed into a region from which there is no return through human aid. We had but two alternatives. One was to go to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other to accept spiritual help. This we did because we honestly wanted to, and were willing to make the effort. A certain American businessman had ability, good sense and high character. For several years he floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrists. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of the celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Jung, who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him sceptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he turned to this doctor whom he admired, and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion. But this man still lives, and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what they called a vital spiritual experience, or what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I've been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I've never been successful with an alcoholic of your description." Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that, after all, he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctor's telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case they did not spell the necessary vital experience. Here was a terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of a drowning man. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God, or a higher power of your understanding. A new life has been given us, or, if you would prefer, a design for living that really works. And when they talk about that, it is a complete change in attitude and behaviour, from being in a problem to being in a solution. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired, and I agree with that, because faith comes from within, and faith is learned and understood by what happens to us in our life experience. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed or colour, are the children of the living Creator, with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. And the universe is creation, just for me. Nature and providence, we are all part of it, and we as a species are evolving from one generation to the next, and my generation all the way back were probably very good at drinking, and I'm learning on a daily basis how not to, by having a completely different set of attitudes and behaviour, and how to live in a solution rather than be stuck in a problem, because if I was stuck in the problem I wouldn't be here. Too many trips to the emergency department for me. With whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies or our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair, which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or his present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favour such memberships. And I honestly don't know who favours what membership or affiliation, because it's none of my business. I've just learned what is working for me on a daily basis, and listening to the experience and strength and hope from others who are also sober on a daily basis, whatever their affiliations outside fellowship. In the following chapter there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it, then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who once were in this class are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience, and as some religious people tell me, spiritual experience is the ability to cope with now, reality. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, "Yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing." And for me, the thing that I wanted most was, I don't know that I wanted to be sober. I think I wanted to be able to drink like a gentleman if ever I did. But suddenly, somehow, I realised that life would actually be better with alcohol, because it drove me mad. And it took a long time for my mind to understand that life would work far better without a drink inside me. That if I wasn't always looking for a pub, a bar, an off-licence, or a market where I could actually get some more drink, I had much more time to find out what life is. Life is just on a daily basis. So gratitude beyond measure, somehow in the mix of all of these things that we call life, and how frantic life is these days, I was able to stop and stand still enough just to say to myself, well, why don't I try and give it a go to be sober just for a day and see what happens next. And that was a few days ago, in fact a long time ago. So to God or good conscience, I always share the serenity prayer, and it's to the God of your understanding, or simply to the understanding that there is a higher power, some wisdom out there which we can draw upon, normally from people that we meet in fellowship, in my experience when it comes to being sober, and then the rest of the world when it comes to living life. So to God or good conscience, or a higher power, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today. Alcoholic. Hello, my name is Don. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm in recovery. And as well as that, behaviour, work, relationships, you name it, any sort of collecting materialism, an ad man's dream, if you like, a marketing specialist's best friend. Put it out there, I want it, and these days, maybe not, just trying to find a bit of emotional, spiritual well-being on a daily basis. So if I look after my emotional and spiritual well-being on a daily basis by being sober, life seems to get more balanced, or the opportunity for life to be in balance, to experience the good and bad of life as it is, rather than at extremes of feeling, which is what I was looking for. Alcohol there to fix myself with external things, people, places, things, work, relationships. Materialism, right car, right house, right job, right everything, but it didn't work. Somehow there was always a gap inside me. Somehow I didn't feel right about life. And that goes back to very early childhood, not understanding the world and not finding the toolkit that most people seem to pick up, which is not a drink, the toolkit of living, experience feelings as they are, having our spiritual contacts in the moment of now, and looking after ourselves. So all of those things I try to fix, and you know what, self-will ran riot, and I didn't know exactly what was going on a lot of the time, except I wanted to be perfect for you, and I never was. So these days, one day at a time, progress, not perfection. And what helps me keep on track on a daily basis, which is the reason why I do these videos, is family, community, professionals help me, and a fellowship called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, helps me keep my spiritual and emotional well-being in balance as best it can be as life happens to me. So this morning, a bit of turmoil, a few things not right, physically working on it, but also my boiler's packed up and it's cold, So hopefully it will get fixed in time. And the impatience in me is, why can't it be now? And the simple answer is, the world doesn't work always right now in my favour. So it will work out, but more clothes later to keep warm. So AA, what's it all about? I share here the AA statement of intent and a little bit of the literature for anyone who is interested in having a desire to stop drinking, or for those who are in recovery and cannot get to a meeting. And I've been stuck indoors for quite a few days now. I haven't been able to get out to meetings, and hopefully later I will. So I have to take it easy. I have a broken foot, but that's just life. Anyway, the AA statement of intent and then some of the literature of what helps me keep sober, the other parts of the toolkit besides meetings of AA. And the AA preamble goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes, and our primary purpose is to stay sober one day at a time and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety if they so wish. And AA is not the only way. There are other ways to keep sober, and I haven't found them, and I've stopped looking because I'm very happy with fellowship. Fellowship affords me something I never really understood: how to be a part of, how to be included, not be in charge of anything, not try and run the whole show, just be there in fellowship, and then find what friendship is, and having found what friendship is, understand what love is, unconditional love, beyond infatuation or self-obsession which says it ought to be this way. We find out what love is just by living. So I'm just living a day at a time, which is the greatest gift I've been given, to be in the moment of now on life's terms. So it's not about me anymore, it's just about where the world is. Nature, providence, you name it, it's just as the world is. And the daily reflections, this book, it really helps me because it covers the 12 steps, one step a month, and it's step 3 in March. So having gone through step 1 around powerlessness over alcohol, life being unmanageable, through to being restored to sanity to an extent by a power greater than me, and most powers are greater than me, especially the fellowship because it's full of wisdom. And it talks then about step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And for me, the understanding of God, well, this is just my version. I don't know that I can define God, but I do know that God is truth. For me, God is truth. The truth of now, what I'm learning on a daily basis. And the truth is always changing. It doesn't stay the same. So God is truth. God is love. God works through people. So now I'm starting to understand what unconditional love is, and God works through people. I hear experience, strength and hope in the rooms of AA every day, or normally. Not so for the last few days. But it's about everything and not me. And how do I fit into the world or be included in the world? So it's not about self-will run riot. It's not about my wants anymore. It's about what do I really need. So I need emotional and spiritual balance. I need to look after myself physically and make the best of what is, be useful. So that whole thing of God for me is ever present, always now, and always changing, because the world, the universe and everything is changing. So I can't define it, but I know I'm not it, I'm not God. And the reading for today it's my choice, it says. We invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. With the realization and acceptance that I had played a part in the way my life had turned out came a dramatic change in my outlook. It was at this point that the AA program began to work for me. In the past I had always blamed others. either God or other people, for my circumstances, I never felt that I had a choice in altering my life. My decisions have been based on fear, pride, or ego. As a result, those decisions led me down a path of self-destruction. Today I try to follow my God to guide me, to allow my God to guide me on the road to sanity. I am responsible for my action or inaction, whatever the consequences may be. So it's not about handing it over and saying it's all up to you now, God. Actually, it's not. It's quite the opposite. It is everything about what we do, our action or inaction. So if we can find the truth of now, which eluded me for 35 years because I thought life was all about me accumulating and looking good and leading and being in charge and in command of me, and celebrating with as much drink as I could get my hands on, or the next relationship, or whatever it happened to be, ad nauseum, trying to fill that horrible gap of fear, putting on a brave face and ego. And the absolute truth of now, for me, truth of now is courage, faith, and learning to be confident that the world is not against me, but nature and providence is as it is, life on life's terms. So if I can find more courage, faith and confidence to face the day through reflection, prayer or meditation, whatever we want to call it, and understand that the world is as it is, it's just as it is, and I can be in it as best I can. It's not going to make it better or worse, it's just going to be the way it is. So the serenity prayer, I'm just checking the time, serenity prayer to the God of your understanding, or higher power, whatever it may be, and for me it's just simply truth. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today. My addiction to substance was alcohol, my behaviour, trying to be perfect all those years, and never so. And today, it's a very sad day. A friend of mine, who I've known for some years in fellowship, died yesterday morning. And are we connected in some way? Sometimes we know there's news that we need to hear, and we're not sure where it's coming from or why. And yesterday was one of those very unsettling days where I wasn't quite sure what was up with the world, or what was up with me. And I couldn't answer the telephone last night. And then a couple of emails this morning alerted me to the fact that a friend of mine had died of a heart attack, and it was quite sudden and unexpected. And a lot of people are very sad today. Somebody who has helped immensely in my life, just live one day at a time and just be generous and gentle, never critical, never judgmental, and an example to me of how to live as one can, a day at a time in recovery. And it's very sad, it really is, and it reminded me of too many people I've known recently have passed, and it's difficult to work out what to say or do or to share when these things happen, because it's obviously a shock and a kind of I can't believe it moment, and then all the other emotions which follow as time enables us to feel those emotions. And for me, I guess the gift is I can feel those emotions today. And last time this happened, there's a letter to a friend by Fra Giovanni, and it goes like this: I salute you. I am your friend, and my love for you goes deep. There is nothing I can give you which you have not got, but there is much, very much, that while I cannot give it, you can take. No heaven can come to us unless our hearts find rest in today. Take heaven. No peace lies in the future which is not hidden in this present little instance. Take peace. The gloom of the world is but a shadow. Behind it, yet within our reach, is joy. Take joy. Life is so full of meaning and purpose, so full of beauty, that you will find earth but cloaks your heaven. Courage then to claim it, that is all. And so I greet you, with profound esteem and with the prayer that for you, now and forever, the day breaks and in the shadow and the shadows flee away. And that was a letter to a friend by Fra Giovanni in 1513. And that sort of sums up how my friend was with people, and his evenness and gentleness and his love for other people, his family and friends, will not be forgotten. I need to end it there, I feel. But letter to a friend. Take heaven. I hope he does. I'm just doing a little short video. Somebody wrote to me about their current state of drinking, and maybe if I just relay to you out there, just as a general message. When I got to the Last Chance Saloon, which I call Alcoholics Anonymous often, where had I got to? I've been through a detox unit, and for 3 weeks, and stopped drinking for 3 weeks. I then went on to a rehab unit, and I had a few days in between before getting there. And one of my horrible admissions, which I made later on, was between detox and rehab I drank again. Because once we're an alcoholic, we are really, really programmed to drink. And there is no shame, actually, and no guilt attached, because we are driven mad by drink. Absolutely bonkers mad, because we cannot stop. And I remember in those horrible days, the previous few months and a year or two, the number of times going to hospital to have some help for a broken bone, to be rehydrated, to be dealt with for internal bleeding, are all parts of what happens when we don't take care of ourselves and we're absolutely addicted to alcohol. And somebody wrote me and said they are having to be sick every morning, and they're getting to a place where the DTs happen. It's like things come out of nowhere, hearing audible sounds which aren't there, and sometimes seeing things which aren't there too. Now that didn't happen to me, but it would have done had I carried on. And where we get to with this malady is where we get to. And the awful truth is, it's not just the damage we're doing to our liver, because people know that liver damage happens because of alcohol. Alcohol is a poison, and the reason why we get happy or euphoric or sad and miserable on it is because we're taking ourselves out of our ordinary range of living. And this is not to poo-poo the idea that anybody can drink or not drink. It's to say, when we get to a stage where we're having severe damage to our system, it's not just the liver, and the liver cannot cope, so other organs are being broken down by alcohol. It's like putting domestos in your system if you're an alcoholic, because it's going to have very bad effects. So I've just implored somebody to seek help locally, and the reason why I say seek help locally is you can get detoxed at home, you can get detoxed in a detox unit, you can find that there are places you can go to get help. It doesn't have to be AA. AA is the maintenance part for me. AA is maintaining my sobriety by the day, and however we get here, with professional help or no help, with the aid and support of another person from AA, or the aid and support of a relative who cares enough and is still able to talk to us even when we've tried to drive them away and we've been isolated. That's what we need to do. The more we stick at trying to sort our problem out on our own, we are going to face the horror of what our alcohol does. It makes us drink and drink and drink, and we cannot stop. So I implore anybody, if you know somebody who needs support, offer it, or ask somebody who knows how to help support somebody who's trying to make that transformation back to an ordinary human being. And that's really all that I would like to say just this morning. But for anybody out there who's really, really suffering and has to take a drink to stop the shakes, to try and find some stability, really, I would say, it's time to ask the question, do I need to keep on drinking, or do I need to stop drinking? And only the person in those shoes can actually make the decision. And most often, the statistics of these from the NHS. 1 in 13 people in the adult population of the UK is an alcoholic or alcohol dependent. And if you're one of them, I suggest it's a good idea to get some help. And it doesn't need to be AA, because as I say, there are plenty of ways of dealing with this situation. The admitting part, I admit it, I have a problem with drink if I drink, is a good starting place. And what follows from there is a personal journey back to being an ordinary human being again. So enough of me and my voice, and I'll do some readings later.